Senator from Virginia.
Madam President, I have 8 requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have the approval of the majority and minority leaders.
Duly noted.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to talk about one of the Senate's foremost constitutional duties, the advice and consent of executive nominations. The most senior nominees, like cabinet secretaries, go through a floor process that normally takes about 4 days if you run through all the procedural steps by the book. Other nominees, typically people with highly specialized expertise, go through a rigorous committee process, then are often confirmed by unanimous consent. Any senator can object. That's the right of the senator. If they feel that even one of hundreds of lower-level nominees should take up nearly a full week of the U.S. Senate's time, they can insist upon that. I think presidents are due an appropriate level of discretion in picking their teams, and I believe this is true whether or not the president is one I support or oppose. I believe in having the executive branch staffed with qualified professionals. I do draw the line at 3 areas. If a nominee is totally unqualified for the job, if there's a well-justified reason to question a nominee's ethics or honesty or impartiality, and finally, if a nominee is so outside the mainstream in ways that go beyond normal good faith disagreement on matters of policy. I opposed a number of President Trump's nominees who met one or multiple of these criteria, but I also supported a larger percentage of President Trump's nominees. Even though these were not people I expected to agree with on policy, they didn't fall afoul of the 3 criteria that I look at in a primary way. I'm here today because of several nominees within the jurisdiction of multiple committees I sit on. They are being blockaded, and I'd like to focus on one just now. Amy Loyd is nominated to be the Assistant Secretary of Education for Career, Technical, and Adult Education. Ms. Loyd designed and led programs across the United States in her prior role at the education think tank Jobs for the Future and the Native American educational advocacy group, the Cook Inlet Tribal Council. She had a distinguished academic career, attending community college first in Santa Fe, prior to a doctorate in education leadership from Harvard Graduate School of Education. She is a lifelong professional in the field of career and technical education, and she brings personal life experience in the field, having begun her career at community college. I believe she is an outstanding point person for President Biden when it comes to matters of career and technical education. The Committee on Health, Education, Labor, Pensions advanced her nomination by a voice vote with no recorded opposition. I sit on the Health Committee. I'm the chairman of the bipartisan Senate Career and Technical Education Caucus. I was proud to support her. Although I do not know Ms. Loyd personally, I do have a personal connection to her nomination. My dad ran a welding and ironworking shop. I grew up working in that shop with my 2 brothers and my mother. I saw the power of career and technical education and the artistry of the ironworkers who worked in my dad's business. When I was in the middle of law school, I took a year off to go be a missionary in Honduras, and I ran a school that taught kids to be carpenters and welders, again, seeing the power of career and technical education. And I think that there's a bipartisan understanding in this body, in the House, and really in society at large, that we may have undervalued career and technical education in recent generations. And as we're contemplating things like an infrastructure bill or other important priorities to grow the economy, we need to put more stress, not less, on the value of career and technical education. So as a senator, I'm proud to have made this one of my central policy fields, working on CTE bills with many, many colleagues on both sides of the aisle. There is a hold on Amy Loyd's nomination, and that's the right of those who would hold her. But I'm here specifically because I'd like to know why. I'd ask my colleagues, under which of the 3 buckets does Ms. Loyd's nomination fall short? Is there a perception that she's not qualified? Is there a perception that she's not ethical? Is there a perception that her views on career and technical education are outside the mainstream? You don't have to support President Biden's nominee. If she's confirmed, part of her job will be answering tough questions from colleagues. But I'd ask my colleagues, if you're voting against nominees of any president from the other party, not because of flaws of the kinds I've described, what does that get us? The American people put Democrats for a period of time in charge of both of the executive and legislative branches. The American public often vote for divided government. Does that mean that any time the White House and the Senate are controlled by different parties, the parties just won't have anybody in their administration? What does that get our country? I think we know the answer: dysfunction. Clearly, Madam President, as I conclude, there are nominees who engender significant controversy, either because of the peculiar nature of the post to which they've been nominated or because of aspects of their background or character. I know of no such controversy with this nominee, either about the position or about the individual herself. And I think if we're to succeed in the necessary project of elevating the importance of career and technical education, we need to have Ms. Loyd confirmed in her position. For that reason, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate consider the following nomination: Calendar 669, Amy Loyd to be Assistant Secretary for Career, Technical, and Adult Education, Department of Education, that the Senate vote on the nomination without intervening action or debate, that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table, and that any statements related to the nomination be printed in the record.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
Senator from Utah.
Madam President, reserving the right to object. I do think it's significant that the party that's now in the majority, that was previously in the minority, took a different position when it was not in the minority, when it was not in the majority, and when a president of their political party was not in power. There was elaborate and, I believe, excessive delay in the confirmation of a lot of nominees, even more so than what we're seeing now. I do have concerns that are particularized to this particular nominee and not generalized, or not concerns that could be dismissed simply as a result of basic partisan disagreements, but based on views that are considerably outside the mainstream and that are radical and harmful. Let me explain. As Vice President of the think tank Jobs for the Future, Mrs. Loyd was responsible for overseeing that organization's workforce development efforts through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's of great concern to me that this body of work produced reports that promulgated ideas aimed at furthering the divisive agenda of critical race theory and ESG scores. One of the most alarming of these reports was one that was published on September 8th, 2020, which asserted that due to, quote, unconscious or implicit bias toward minorities, close quote, managers are limiting the advancement or promotion of minorities in the workforce. These divisive, inflammatory assumptions are dangerous to the civil fabric of our society. Elevating individuals who espouse this dangerous and divisive ideology to key leadership positions within the federal government will only further divide Americans, pitting them one against another. We should instead seek to elevate into positions of leadership those who aim to unify the American people and emphasize the importance of making sure that people are evaluated on the basis of the character of their heart, not the color of their skin. Her work has done the opposite of that. In good conscience, I cannot and will not support the nomination of Mrs. Loyd, and on that basis, I object.
The objection is heard.
Madam President, I note the absence of a quorum.